Henry Wilson woke up before dawn feeling a weight on his chest he couldn't explain. For months, sleep had brought him no rest, only memories of old responsibilities and fears he dared not confess even to himself. A widower for almost 10 years. Since Sarah's passing, he carried alone the management of Willow Creek Ranch, his father's inheritance, located on the outskirts of Eagle Ridge, Montana. "Damn insomnia," he grumbled, running his hand over his tired face. He was a man of means and respect, with dozens of employees under his command and pastures that extended beyond what the eye could see. From a young age, he had learned that the land only bears fruit to those who dominate it with a firm hand. His ranch hands both feared and admired him in equal measure, for there wasn't anyone in the entire region who doubted his competence as a cattle rancher. But on that morning, while the sky remained tinged with dark purple, Henry felt something different in the air. It was as if the cold wind entering through the window cracks brought a warning. He got up slowly, feeling his joints crack. He put on his worn cotton shirt, slipped on his worn boots, and took the hat hanging behind the door. The path to the corral was short, but sufficient for the strong smell of damp earth to awaken his proprietor instinct. Upon arriving, he noticed Thunder, his trusted bay horse, softly whinnying and impatiently stomping his hoof on the ground. "What's wrong, old boy? What's all this agitation about?" His attentive eyes soon perceived the reason. Stubborn, the oldest goat on the ranch, was pacing back and forth near the tying post, scraping the ground with his hooves, snorting and raising fine dust in the air. Henry narrowed his eyes, judging the animal as a problem that needed to be solved. Suddenly, before he could react, Stubborn lowered his head and charged forward forcefully, hitting Henry in the knee and knocking him down into the cold mud of the corral. The pain throbbed intensely, climbing from his leg to his hip. His pride, however, hurt more. "You damn beast!" he shouted, rising unsteadily. Two ranch hands witnessed the scene with wide eyes, holding back laughter out of fear, but unable to disguise their surprise. Joe, the oldest foreman, approached with concern. "Boss, are you hurt? Want me to call you?" "I don't want anything." Henry cut him off, feeling his pants soaked with mud and shame. "Sell that animal tomorrow. I won't tolerate any animal that dares to challenge me." He returned to the house limping, each step a mixture of physical pain and humiliation. He tried to follow his usual routine, reviewing cattle weighing reports, but Thunder was grazing outside his window, whinnying loudly from time to time, as if calling his attention to something he insisted on ignoring. The night before, he had dreamed of Sarah. She appeared in a light blue dress, smiling serenely, and said only, "Listen to what is not said." He had awakened confused, as he never understood metaphors or vague advice. While organizing his papers, he received a voice message from Emily, his only daughter. "Dad, I'm arriving at the end of the week to see how you're doing. Take care of what God gave you today." Henry felt a knot in his stomach. It was as if his daughter was talking about something beyond himself. When the sun was already high, he decided to go to the corral to supervise Stubborn's capture. But he found an absurd scene. Thunder was blocking the ranch hand's passage, pushing away with his muzzle the men who approached. "What the hell?" he muttered, watching his faithful horse protect the goat that had knocked him down. It was then that something caught his attention. Among wet straw piled in the corner of the corral, something small was moving. He walked over and felt his heart skip a beat when he saw a newborn kid, bleating weakly and trembling from cold. Stubborn was just defending the little one. Thunder, always intuitive, had perceived this before him. Henry stood still for long minutes, feeling the cold wind hitting his sweaty face, while a stubborn tear insisted on forming. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. On the following Friday, the sound of an engine cut through the morning silence of the ranch. Henry, who was organizing feed in the storage shed, immediately recognized the sound of Emily's car. His heart accelerated, as it always did when his daughter arrived, a mixture of joy and apprehension he couldn't explain. Emily got out of the vehicle with her usual energy, her brown hair dancing in the wind. At 32, she was the image of Sarah when young, but with the determination she had inherited from him. A successful veterinarian in Denver, she always arrived loaded with presents and stories from the big city. "Dad!" she shouted, running in his direction. Henry opened his arms, feeling the familiar perfume of his girl mix with the smell of earth and grass. For a few seconds, he allowed himself to be just a father, forgetting the weight of responsibilities. "I've missed you so much, my daughter," he murmured in her ear. "Let me get a good look at you," said Emily, stepping back to examine him. "Dad, you've lost weight, and what's with that limp?" "Old man's nonsense," he replied, trying to hide it. But Emily wasn't easy to fool. Being a veterinarian, she knew how to recognize discomfort in any living creature. "Dad, tell me the truth. What happened?" Henry sighed, leading her to the house porch. He told her about the incident with Stubborn, omitting only the part about the kid and his emotional discovery. He didn't know how to explain that a goat had taught him something about fatherhood. "And did you sell the goat?" asked Emily, furrowing her brows. "No, not yet," he admitted, without looking into his daughter's eyes. "Dad, take me to meet this Stubborn." In the corral, they found a scene that melted Emily's heart. Stubborn was grazing peacefully next to the kid, who was already stronger and more playful. Thunder remained nearby like a guardian. "My God, Dad, it's the most beautiful kid I've ever seen," she exclaimed, kneeling to caress the small animal. "How could you not tell me about him?" Henry swallowed hard. "I only discovered him a few days ago." "And his name?" I haven't thought about it." Emily smiled, that smile that reminded him so much of Sarah. "How about Hope? Look at his little eyes, Dad. There's something special there." At that moment, Joe approached with a worried expression. "Boss, there's a man at the gate who wants to talk to you. Says he's from the town hall." Henry frowned. Unexpected visits never brought good news. He left Emily with the animals and went to the property entrance, where he found a man in a grey suit, completely out of place in that rural environment. "Mr. Henry Wilson?" asked the visitor, extending his hand. "I'm Robert Miller from the Environmental Department. I need to talk about a delicate matter." Henry's blood ran cold. "What kind of matter?" "We received an anonymous complaint about animal mistreatment on your property," said Robert, taking a folder from the car. "I'm obligated to conduct an inspection." "Mistreatment?" Henry felt his voice falter. "This is absurd. I've been taking care of my animals for decades." "I know that, sir. Your reputation in the region is excellent, but I need to follow protocol." The complaint specifically mentions aggression toward a goat and precarious housing conditions. Henry immediately thought of Stubborn and the corral incident. Had someone witnessed his angry reaction? Had one of the ranch hands filed the complaint? Out of fear of retaliation? "When would this inspection be?" he asked, trying to maintain his composure. "Preferably on Monday. I brought the necessary documents." At that moment, Emily appeared, walking toward them, carrying Hope in her arms. The kid bleated softly, and she calmed it with caresses. "Dad, who's our visitor?" Henry made the introductions with a heavy heart. Robert carefully observed the affectionate interaction between Emily and the animal. "Are you a veterinarian?" he asked. "Yes, I work in Denver," replied Emily, sensing the tension in the air. "Did something happen?" Robert briefly explained about the inspection, observing both their reactions. "Actually, miss, your presence could be useful. Being a veterinarian, you can help us clarify any misunderstanding." After the official left, father and daughter remained silent on the porch. The afternoon was slowly falling over the pastures, painting the sky golden. "Dad, tell me the whole truth about what happened with Stubborn," Emily asked, her voice laden with concern. Henry looked at his daughter, seeing in her eyes the same determination that Sarah had when she wanted to get to the bottom of an issue. He knew he couldn't hide anything for long. That night, father and daughter sat in the kitchen of the old house, illuminated only by the yellowish light of the lamp above the wooden table. Emily had prepared coffee the way Sarah used to make it, strong and sweet, and the aroma brought back memories that Henry kept deep in his heart. "Dad, I need to know what really happened," insisted Emily, holding the cup between her hands. "Since Mom passed away, you've changed. You've become more rigid, more distant." Henry stirred the sugar in his coffee with slow movements, buying time. "Emily, you don't understand the pressure of taking care of all this alone," he murmured. Your mother was always the heart of this house. Without her, you closed yourself off, Emily completed with teary eyes. Dad, I lost my mother too, but it seems like I lost you, along with her. The words hit Henry like a punch to the stomach. He abruptly stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the corral. Outside, Thunder was grazing under the full moon, and Stubborn was resting close to the kid. When Stubborn knocked me down, I felt more than physical pain, he confessed without turning around. I felt like I had lost control of everything. I was angry, very angry. I yelled at him, kicked the ground at the ranch hands, saw everything. Emily approached slowly, placing her hand on her father's shoulder. And then? Then I discovered the kid, and I understood that Stubborn wasn't challenging me. He was protecting his little one. Henry's voice broke. Like me, who should protect you, but only knows how to give orders and instill fear. Dad, your mother always said that. I treated the animals better than people. Now I understand what she meant. Emily hugged her father from behind, feeling his broad shoulders tremble slightly. Dad, it's never too late to change. Mom used to say that a man's heart is like the earth. It can always bear new fruits. The next morning, they were awakened by the sound of engines on the road. Henry looked out the window and saw 3 pickup trucks coming up the dirt road. His heart raced as he recognized the official plates. Weren't they supposed to come on Monday? Asked Emily, peering over her father's shoulder. Yes, replied Henry, furrowing his brows. Something's not right. The vehicles stopped in front of the house and 5 men got out. Robert Miller, 2 technicians with clipboards and 2 agents who appeared to be from the environmental police. The group walked with haste and determination. Mr. Wilson, called Robert with a more serious tone than the day before, we received additional information about the complaint. I need you to accompany us to the corral immediately. What kind of information? Asked Emily, positioning herself next to her father. They allege that there are injured animals being kept in inadequate captivity, answered one of the technicians, and possible concealment of evidence. Henry felt his blood freeze. Concealment? What are you talking about? Sir, let's go to the corral, said Robert, avoiding a direct answer. During the walk, Henry tried to think about who could have made such a specific complaint. His employees had worked on the ranch for years and had always been loyal. Besides, who would have an interest in harming him? When they reached the corral, the official group stopped abruptly. Stubborn was lying on his side, apparently motionless. With Hope bleating desperately beside him, Thunder was walking in circles around the 2, agitated. My God, exclaimed Emily, running toward the animals. One of the technicians held her arm. Don't approach yet, please. Emily knelt beside Stubborn, examining him with professional care. After a few minutes, she stood up with relief. He's in a deep sleep, probably exhausted from taking care of the kid all night. Are you sure? Asked Robert. Absolutely, normal breathing, regular heartbeat. It's common in animals that have just become parents, explained Emily, caressing Hope to calm him down. The technicians examined the facilities, measured the space, photographed the hygiene conditions and feeding areas. Everything was in perfect order. Henry, despite his relief, remained intrigued by the complaint. Robert, he called while the others finished the inspection, can I know more details about who made the complaint? By law, it's anonymous, replied the official. But I can tell you it was made by phone last night by a female voice. Henry and Emily exchanged surprised looks. A female voice. Who could it be? The person claimed to have witnessed aggression and abandonment of injured animals, continued Robert. She also mentioned that you had a habit of mistreating animals when you got nervous. Henry felt the world spin. That description was very specific, very personal. Someone who knew him well had made that false accusation. Dad, do you have any idea who could? Emily began. I do, interrupted Henry with his jaw clenched, and I think I know exactly who it is. After the town officials left, leaving a favorable report, Henry walked around the ranch with heavy steps. Emily followed him in silence, respecting her father's moment of reflection. The midday sun was punishing, but the cold that Henry felt came from within. "Dad, who do you think made the complaint?" asked Emily when they stopped in the shade of a large oak tree. Henry took off his hat, running his hand through his greying hair. "Claire." "Claire? Who's Claire?" "Your mother's sister," replied Henry, with bitterness in his voice. "She's been living in Denver for 15 years. We haven't spoken since Sarah's funeral." Emily's eyes widened. "Dad, I didn't even know Mom had a sister. Why did you never tell me about her?" "Because it was better that way," said Henry, putting his hat back on. "Claire was always jealous of Sarah. When your mother died, she said horrible things." "What kind of things?" Henry hesitated, reliving painful memories. "She said I killed your sister with heartbreak, that I was too hard of a man, that I never knew how to truly love." His voice trembled. "She said that Sarah suffered in silence, and that I didn't even notice." Emily felt her heart tighten. "And did you believe her?" "I don't know," confessed Henry. "Maybe a little. Your mother never complained about anything, but in the last years before she passed, she seemed distant." At that moment, Joe approached running with an anxious face. "Boss, there's a woman at the gate asking for you. Says she's family." Father and daughter looked at each other. "What does she look like?" asked Henry. "Brunette, short hair, glasses, in a black car, well-dressed," described the foreman. "It's her," murmured Henry, feeling his legs weaken. "Dad, let's face this together," said Emily, holding his arm. They walked to the entrance of the property, where they found a woman of about 50, elegantly dressed, leaning against a black sedan. Upon seeing them, she straightened her body and walked toward them with determination. "Henry," she said coldly, without greeting him. "Claire," he responded, with tension in his voice. "And this must be Emily," said Claire, observing her niece with curiosity. "You look just like Sarah at your age." "Aunt Claire?" asked Emily, still processing the situation. "Why have we never met?" "Ask your father," replied Claire with sarcasm. "He preferred to banish me from the family." "You banished yourself," retorted Henry, "with your unfounded accusations." "Unfounded?" Claire laughed bitterly. "Henry, I saw how you treated my sister, always giving orders, always demanding perfection. She called me crying many times." Emily looked from her father to her aunt, confused. "Mom cried?" "Your mother was a saint," said Claire, addressing her niece. "She endured for years a husband who didn't know how to show love, who treated her like he treated the ranch hands." "Enough!" exploded Henry. "You know nothing about my marriage." "I know more than you imagine," replied Claire, taking her phone from her purse. "Including that you still mistreat animals when you get nervous. That's why I made the complaint." "It was you, after all." Henry took a step forward, with clenched fists. Emily positioned herself between them. "Calm down, Dad. Aunt Claire, why did you do this?" "Because I received a call from someone at the ranch telling me about the aggression toward the goat," explained Claire, "and I decided it was time for someone to expose the real Henry Wilson." "Who called you?" asked Emily. Claire hesitated for a moment. "I can't reveal that. The person is afraid of retaliation." Henry felt betrayed from all sides. One of his employees, someone he trusted, had contacted Claire to harm him. What else did this person say? "That you yelled at the animal, that you kicked it, that you ordered its immediate sale out of revenge," enumerated Claire. "Exactly the kind of thing you did to Sarah when something didn't go your way." "That's not true," protested Emily. "My father never abused my mother." "Physically, no," admitted Claire. "But there are other ways to hurt someone, Emily. Your mother died of sadness." Silence weighed heavily on the three of them. Henry felt as if the ground was opening beneath his feet. What if Claire was right? What if he really was responsible for Sarah's unhappiness? "Aunt, what do you want from us?" asked Emily with a trembling voice. "I want justice for my sister," replied Claire, putting her phone away. "And I want you to know the truth about who Henry really is." "And what is that truth?" challenged Henry. Claire looked at him harshly. "That you are a man who never learned to love, and that now you're repeating the same mistakes with your daughter." Emily felt tears welling up. She looked at her father, seeking a denial, an explanation, anything that would undo those cruel words. But Henry remained silent, with his gaze lost on the horizon, as if all of Claire's accusations were true. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. After Claire left, leaving her poisonous words hanging in the air, Emily walked to the corral without saying a word. Henry followed her, his heart heavy as lead. They found Stubborn playing with Hope, a scene of tenderness that contrasted with the tension between them. "Dad, is it true?" asked Emily without looking at him. Was Mom really unhappy? Henry leaned on the fence, feeling the weight of years and uncertainties. "Emily, I don't know. Your mother never complained, never said she was sad." "But you never asked, did you?" Emily's voice was laden with pain. "Just like you never ask me if I'm okay, if I need anything besides money." "Daughter, I always wanted the best for you." "Wanting and showing affection are different things, Dad," she interrupted, finally facing him. "When was the last time you told me you love me?" Henry felt as if he'd been slapped. He tried to remember, but words had always been difficult for him. He expressed love through work, through provision, through protection, but never through sweet words or affectionate gestures. You know I love you," he murmured. "Do I? How can I know if you never say it?" Emily wiped away a stubborn tear. "Dad, I became a veterinarian because I wanted to make you proud, to work on the ranch with you, but you never showed interest. I thought you wanted to live your life in the city. I wanted you to invite me to stay." At that moment they heard footsteps approaching. It was Joe with a contrite face and trembling hands. "Boss, can I speak with you?" "Not now, Joe," replied Henry, still shaken by the conversation with his daughter. "It's about the call to Mrs. Claire," said the foreman, lowering his head. "It was me." Father and daughter turned in surprise. Henry felt a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Why, Joe, after so many years working here?" "Boss, I didn't want to harm you," said Joe with teary eyes, "but I got worried when I saw your reaction to Stubborn. I remembered Mrs. Sarah." "What does my wife have to do with this?" Joe took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "Boss, with all due respect, Mrs. Sarah did suffer. I saw her crying in the kitchen when you went out to the fields. She asked me not to tell you anything." Henry felt his legs weaken. "Why was she crying?" "Because she felt lonely, boss. You worked too much, hardly talked to her. Mrs. Sarah said she felt more like an employee of the house than your wife." Emily covered her face with her hands, and Henry felt the world crumbling around him. "Continue," he asked, his voice hoarse. About 3 years before she passed, she told me, "Joe, my husband loves this land more than he loves me. He talks more to the animals than to me," the foreman recounted with tears in his eyes. "She asked me to take care of you if anything happened to her." "And why did you call Claire?" asked Emily. "Because I remembered Mrs. Sarah's words. When I saw the boss angry at Stubborn, I thought he needed help, that someone needed to make him see," explained Joe. "Mrs. Claire always said she would come back if the boss needed her. I thought maybe she could save me from myself," completed Henry, understanding. "I'm sorry, boss. I just wanted to help." Henry placed his hand on the loyal employee's shoulder. "Joe, you have a family, a wife, children. I never asked how they are." "They're fine, boss," replied Joe, surprised by the question. "How do you manage to work? All day here and still be a good husband and father?" Joe smiled timidly. "Because when I get home, I leave work at the gate. My family knows they're what matters most to me." Emily observed the conversation with a heavy heart. She was finally seeing her father trying to understand his own flaws. "Dad," she said softly, "it's never too late to learn." Henry looked at his daughter, then at Joe, then at Stubborn and Hope. Everyone around him knew how to love better than he did. "Emily, I want to try, but I don't know how." "Start by telling me about my mother," she asked. "The good things, the happy moments you had." Henry sat on the fence board, and for the first time in years he let the happy memories return. "Your mother laughed when I sang in the shower. She said I was so off-key that even the birds stopped singing," he recounted, with a nostalgic smile. Did she sing too? Like an angel. On summer festival nights she would sing and dance. I would just watch, bursting with pride, Henry remembered. And she cooked. My God, how well she cooked. Why did you stop having moments like that? Henry thought for a long moment. Because I thought that showing love meant working more, earning more money, expanding the ranch. I thought she would understand that everything I did was for her, for you. But she wanted you, Dad. Present, talking, laughing together, said Emily, approaching him. That's what I've always wanted too. At that moment, Thunder approached them, placing his head on Henry's shoulder, as if understanding his pain. Even Thunder knows how to comfort better than I do, murmured Henry, caressing the horse. Then learn from him, suggested Emily, smiling through her tears. Animals love without reservations, without fear of showing affection. Henry looked into his daughter's eyes, and for the first time in decades let the words come from his heart. Emily, I love you more than anything in this life, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say that. The next morning, Emily woke up to the smell of coffee and pancakes coming from the kitchen. She went downstairs intrigued and found her father preparing breakfast, something he hadn't done in years. Henry was dressed in his cleanest shirt, his hair carefully combed. Good morning, my daughter, he said with a shy smile. I remembered you like blueberry pancakes. Emily felt her heart warm. Dad, you remembered. I remembered a lot of things last night, replied Henry, serving the coffee. I spent the night awake, thinking about what you and Joe said. They sat at the table, and for the first time in years they had coffee together without rushing, talking about small things. The weather, the animals, the flowers that Sarah had planted in the garden, and that still bravely resisted. Dad, can I ask a question? Said Emily, biting into a pancake. Anything you want. Why did you never want me to work on the ranch? Henry paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I was afraid you would become like me, hard, closed off, not knowing how to show love. He sighed deeply. I wanted you to be free, to be happy in the city, away from my flaws. But Dad, I'm happy here. This land is part of me too. And if you want to stay, work with me. Emily almost choked on her coffee. Are you serious? I am, said Henry, taking his daughter's hand. This ranch needs someone who truly understands animals, not just business. It needs someone with heart. At that moment, they heard a strange noise coming from the corral. They ran outside and found Hope bleating desperately. Stubborn was down again, but this time he seemed genuinely ill. Dad, something's wrong, said Emily, kneeling beside the goat. She examined him quickly and frowned. He has a high fever and a distended abdomen. What could it be? I need to take him to the veterinary clinic in Eagle Ridge. Now, said Emily, rising quickly. It could be something serious. Henry didn't hesitate. Together with Joe, they improvised a stretcher and carried Stubborn to the pickup truck. Hope wouldn't stop bleating, trying to follow his father. Emily took the kid in her arms. We'll all go together, she decided. At the veterinary clinic, while Emily examined Stubborn with the proper equipment, Henry held Hope, who was trembling with fear. The kid snuggled in his arms, seeking comfort. How strange, murmured Henry, caressing the little head of the animal. A week ago, I wanted to get rid of his father. Now I'm here, hoping he recovers. Joe, who had insisted on accompanying them, smiled. Boss, you're discovering that caring for others isn't weakness. It's strength, completed Emily, coming out of the exam room. Dad, it's an intestinal obstruction. I'll have to operate on him. Can you do that? Asked Henry, concerned. I can, but it will be a delicate surgery. Stubborn isn't young anymore, explained Emily, putting on her surgical gown. I need you to stay with Hope. He can't be left alone. During the next 3 hours, Henry discovered something about himself he had never imagined. He had infinite patience when it came to caring for someone vulnerable. Hope slept in his arms, and he remained motionless so as not to wake the kid. Boss, said Joe in a low voice, you're different. How so? More human, smiled the foreman. Mrs. Sarah would be proud. When Emily finally came out of surgery, she was exhausted but smiling. Everything went well. Stubborn will recover nicely. Henry felt an inexplicable joy invade his chest. "Can I see him?" "Of course." In the recovery room, Stubborn was awake but still groggy from the anesthetic. When he saw Henry approach, the goat showed no fear or aggression. He just looked into the eyes of the man who, days before, had considered him an enemy. "I'm sorry." "Hold, friend," murmured Henry, gently touching the animal's head. "I didn't understand that you were just being a father." Hope bleated softly, and Stubborn responded with a weak but affectionate sound. Father and son recognized each other, and Henry felt tears forming again. "Dad," said Emily, moved, "do you want to hold Hope so he can see that he's okay?" Henry took the kid and brought him close to Stubborn. The goat sniffed the little one and completely relaxed, closing his eyes in peace. In that moment, Henry understood something fundamental. Love wasn't just about protecting, it was also about being present, showing affection, creating bonds. "Emily," he said, looking at his daughter, "I want to learn to be a real father, and a grandfather too when the time comes." "Dad, I want you to come work with me on the ranch, not as an employee but as a partner, as the heir you should have always been," declared Henry, "and I want you to teach me how to talk to the animals like you do." Emily hugged her father, still holding Hope between them. "Dad, I accept, but there's one condition." "What?" "You have to reconcile with Aunt Claire. Mom wouldn't want to see the family divided." Henry sighed deeply. The idea of seeking out Claire and admitting his mistakes still frightened him, but looking at Stubborn recovering and Hope sleeping peacefully, he realized that sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest. "All right," he agreed, "but you're coming with me." 3 days later, Henry and Emily traveled to Denver. Stubborn had already recovered and was playing with Hope in the corral under Joe's attentive care. During the trip, Henry remained silent, mentally rehearsing the words he would say to his sister-in-law. "Dad, are you nervous?" asked Emily, driving down the highway. "Terrified," he admitted. "I don't know how to ask forgiveness from someone I've hurt so much." "Start by being sincere." That's all she needs to hear. Claire lived in an elegant condominium in the central region of the city. When she opened the apartment door, her eyes showed genuine surprise at seeing them there. "Henry? Emily, what are you doing here?" "Aunt, we need to talk," said Emily, "all of us." Claire hesitated for a moment, but ended up inviting them in. The apartment was well decorated, with photos of Sarah scattered throughout the living room. Henry felt his heart tighten as he saw his wife's smiling face in every corner. "You kept her photos," he observed. "Sarah was my only family," replied Claire, serving coffee. "Until you excluded me." "Claire," began Henry, taking a deep breath, "I came to ask for forgiveness." His sister-in-law almost dropped the cup. "Forgiveness." "You were right about many things," continued Henry, fighting against emotion. "I was an absent husband, a distant father. Sarah really did suffer because of me." Claire sat down slowly, still processing the words. "Henry, what happened to you?" "I learned that loving isn't just working and providing. It's being present, showing affection, creating happy memories," he explained. "And I learned that by watching a goat caring for his kid." Emily told the whole story. The incident with Stubborn, the discovery of the kid, her father's gradual transformation. Claire listened in silence, with tears forming. "Sarah always said you had a good heart," murmured Claire, "but that it was hidden behind the fear of appearing weak." "Fear of what?" asked Emily. "Of what my father used to say when I was a child," confessed Henry, "that a man who shows feelings isn't respected, that he had to be tough to be the head of the family." "And did Sarah understand that?" "She understood, but she suffered," said Claire, drying her eyes. "Sarah would call me saying she felt like you two were strangers living in the same house." "Why did she never tell me this directly?" asked Henry, his voice breaking. "Because she was afraid you would close yourself off even more," explained Claire. "She thought if she pressured you, you would pull away completely." At that moment, Claire stood up and went to a cabinet, from which she took a shoebox. "Henry, there's something you need to see." Inside the box were dozens of letters that Sarah had written to her husband but never delivered. She wrote to you when she felt alone, explained Claire, handing him one of the letters. She would read them to me over the phone. With trembling hands, Henry opened the first letter. Sarah's delicate handwriting filled his eyes with tears. My dear Henry, today you worked late again. I stood by the window waiting for you to return. For dinner. When you arrived, you only asked if the food was ready. You didn't ask how my day was, if I was okay. Sometimes I feel like you love me the way you love the land. Necessary but silent. I wish so much that you knew I need words, looks, small gestures. I don't write this to blame you, but to express my longing for the sweet man I met at the 4th of July dance. Henry couldn't continue reading. He sobbed like a child, holding the letter against his chest. She loved you deeply, said Claire, with a soft voice, but she also suffered deeply. I destroyed the love of my life, groaned. Henry? No, interrupted Emily, embracing her father. You didn't know how to show love. There's a difference. Claire approached and surprisingly hugged her brother-in-law. Henry, Sarah wouldn't want to see us fighting. She always wanted us to be a united family. Can you forgive me? Asked Henry. I already have, replied Claire, the moment you recognized your mistakes. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking about Sarah, sharing happy and sad memories. Claire showed more photos and told stories of the sisters' childhood. Henry discovered aspects of his wife's personality he had never known, her dreams, her fears, her hopes. She wanted to have more children, revealed Claire, but you always said that Emily was already enough work. I didn't. No, murmured Henry. She never told me. Because you never asked what she wanted, said Claire without bitterness. You just assumed everything was fine. When they were preparing to leave, Claire made an unexpected request. Can I come with you to the ranch? I'd like to visit Sarah's grave. Of course, replied Emily immediately. Your family. And Claire, said Henry, stopping at the door, you will always be welcome in our home. Sarah would want it that way. During the trip back, with Claire sleeping in the back seat and the box of letters on his lap, Henry felt for the first time in years a sense of completeness. He hadn't erased the past, but he had finally understood the present. Dad, said Emily softly, Mum would be proud of the man you're becoming. I hope one day to deserve that pride, replied Henry, looking out the window at the fields that stretched to the horizon. And I hope there's still time to be the father you've always deserved. There is, smiled Emily. We have our whole lives ahead of us. A month later, Willow Creek Ranch was breathing a completely new energy. Claire had decided to stay permanently, selling her apartment in Denver to help manage the social aspect of the property. Emily had taken over the veterinary care of all, the animals, implementing welfare programs that transformed the ranch into a reference in the region. Henry, in turn, had discovered an unexpected passion, storytelling. Every night, he would sit on the porch with Emily and Claire, sharing memories of Sarah and learning to express feelings through words. On that special Saturday morning, they were all gathered in the corral watching Hope, who had grown and become the most affectionate animal on the ranch. Stubborn remained his protector, but now also allowed others to approach his offspring. Dad, a registered letter arrived for you, said Emily, handing him the official envelope. Henry frowned as he saw the sender, a law office in Denver. He opened it with curiosity and began to read. His face changed expression, going from curiosity to astonishment, then to emotion. What is it, Henry? Asked Claire, concerned. It's about Sarah, he murmured, his voice breaking. Mum, what about her? Asked Emily, coming closer. Henry sat heavily on a barrel, holding the letter with trembling hands. Before she passed, Sarah secretly sought out a lawyer. She left specific instructions. What kind of instructions? Insisted Claire. She bought a piece of land adjacent to our property, explained Henry with tears forming. 20 acres that were kept in her name all these years, and she left a letter to be delivered only when I found my heart. What do you mean? Asked Emily. She instructed the lawyer to deliver the documents only when someone from the family confirmed that I had changed, that I had learned to show love, Henry recounted, barely able to speak. Claire confirmed it last week when she called to thank us for our visit. Claire covered her face with her hands, moved. She knew you would change. There was a letter with it, said Henry, taking another envelope from his pocket. Do you want me to read it? The two women nodded, and Henry opened the last letter Sarah had written. My beloved Henry, if you're reading this, it means you finally found the way to your heart. I always knew there was a sweet and caring man hidden behind your toughness. I bought this land so you could expand the ranch when you were ready to do it with love, not just with ambition. I want you to transform this land into a place where injured animals can recover, where families can gather, where love is the force that moves everything. I ask only one thing. Marry again. Find someone who makes you smile every day. You deserve to be loved as you always deserved, and Emily deserves to see her father happy and complete. Don't cry for me, my love. Celebrate the life you still have ahead of you. With all my eternal love, Sarah. The silence that followed was profound and sacred. Henry cried without embarrassment, holding the letter against his chest. Emily and Claire embraced him, forming a circle of love and healing. She was always wiser than all of us, murmured Claire. And more generous, added Emily. At that moment, they heard the sound of a car approaching. It was Dr. Robert Miller. But he wasn't alone. An elegant woman with grey hair and a welcoming smile got out of the vehicle beside him. I hope you don't mind the unexpected visit, said Robert, approaching the group. This is Martha Sanders, a retired veterinarian from Great Falls. She heard about the exceptional work you're doing here and would like to see the property. Martha greeted everyone warmly, but her eyes lingered on Henry. There was something in the way she smiled that reminded him of Sarah, a mixture of sweetness and determination. Mr. Wilson, it's an honor to meet you, said Martha. Robert told me about the transformation of this ranch. It's rare to see a man willing to change so much out of love for animals. Actually, it was the animals that changed me, replied Henry, feeling a strange butterfly in his stomach. While Martha talked with Emily about veterinary techniques, Claire nudged her brother-in-law. She's a widow, she whispered. And look how she looks at you. Claire, protested Henry, blushing. Sarah said for you to be happy again, she reminded him, smiling. And Martha seems to be a wonderful woman. During the improvised lunch they had on the porch, Martha told about her work with rescued animals and her dream of creating a sanctuary. Henry listened to her, fascinated, seeing in her a passion for animals that mirrored his own. And you, Mr. Wilson? What are your plans for the ranch? Asked Martha. Henry looked at the land that Sarah had left him, then at Emily and Claire, finally at Stubborn and Hope, grazing in harmony. I want to transform this place into a home, he said with conviction, a place where injured animals can heal, where families gather, where love is more important than profit. What a beautiful dream, murmured Martha with shining eyes. Would you like to help me make it happen? Asked Henry, surprising himself with his courage. Martha smiled, and in that smile Henry saw not a replacement for Sarah, but a new possibility of love, different but equally precious. I'd love to, she replied. That afternoon, as the sun set over the golden fields of Willow Creek Ranch, 4 people planned a future full of hope. Stubborn was resting in the shade of a tree, with Hope playing around him. Thunder grazed peacefully, occasionally whinnying softly as if approving all the changes. Henry looked around and felt, for the first time in decades, that he was exactly where he should be, at the center of a family that had chosen to love, surrounded by animals that had taught him the true meaning of protection, on land that would flourish not through force but through care. And in the gentle afternoon breeze, he could swear he heard Sarah's melodious laughter, approving each decision, each change, each new beginning that sprouted from that, finally, healed heart. Stronger than any man is he who learns to protect with love. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like.